I'd now like to introduce Jan Küver, who's sitting, yes. Jan's actually, I've not got much biographical information other that he's kind of multinational. And he's going to introduce himself, I hope, but I will introduce his topic. Here we are. Thank you. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Jan. Jan's a Ph.D. candidate at Cottbus in the International Graduate School. He's studying how cultural heritage can be a strategic driver for sustainable development. He is working on how he can harness cultural heritage for empowerment and sustainable development and its implications on an applied heritage project in Tanzania. And today he's going to speak to us on that very topic. So thank you, Jan. I'm sorry I didn't have your details. Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As already announced, I'm presenting some thoughts on heritage development and sustainability related to a practical heritage management project we run at the University of Göttingen in southern Tanzania, and about which I'm writing my PhD thesis at BTU-Cottbus. Before I go into the project, I would like to start with some theoretical parameters which are informing our intervention, as well as the academic analysis of what we are doing. There are three of them. The first one, I wrote here linearity, or I rather prefer maybe a linear continuity, claiming that sustainability can be achieved through an intergenerational contract on the use of resources. We all know the Brundtland definition, meeting the needs of present generation without compromising those of the future. Anyway, the key value I see here is responsibility. Responsibility for available resources and their utilization along a timeline. Second parameter is if you come from a systems perspective or systemic balance. Here, assuming that sustainable development can be achieved through balancing the functional domains of society. Here we are equipped with the four pillars of sustainability of UNESCO: economy, society, environment, and culture as a cross-cutting domain. Here I see possibly key value is the new buzzword, resilience, meaning the ability of the system or the flexibility of the system to absorb or adapt to changes, the durability to change while maintaining a core identity. And lastly, the last point, actor involvement, meaning that sustainability is to be achieved through participation and empowerment of concerned individuals and groups. Key value here, I think, is the question of equal access of people and of groups and individuals to resources and their utilization. Because access or the opportunity to engage in resource utilization, I understand, is a precondition to develop responsibility and also to develop resilience skills. So in practice, we believe that actor involvement is the starting point. How can culture and heritage be used to empower people? Empowerment, first of all, needs to be perceived as an outcome of internal and external factors. Internal meaning a self-consciousness to accept responsibility and believe in the ability to act and react. And external means to acquire or access the necessary means to act towards a challenge. So, related to cultural heritage, internal empowerment, we assume that a reference to the past can consolidate cultural identification and connect generations amid significant changes, therefore enabling cultural coherence and linear sustainability, especially related to intangible resources. And secondly, external empowerment is when we understand heritage as a medium to create value in relation to different domains of society. Here you see the systems approach, and to generate tangible benefits such as formal employment, financial income, and general lifestyle choices through culture and heritage. Now I'm moving towards the project. When we now try to convert these concepts of empowerment and sustainability into practice, we divided our activities into 5 different strategic areas. We call them clusters. Although not intended initially, later on we discovered that these nearly exactly match the 5 C's from UNESCO, the strategic goals for World Heritage Management. So we decided to adopt those beyond World Heritage as our strategic tools as well, supporting the overall aim of using culture and heritage for empowerment and sustainable development. You all know these 5 C's: credibility, conservation, capacity building, communication, and community involvement. Maybe you ask yourself, why these different colors? Here the answer comes. This is our project logo, Fahari Yetu. Fahari Yetu is Kiswahili, meaning our pride. Fahari Yetu, Southern Highlands Culture Solutions. We are working in the Southern Highlands of Tanzania, specifically Iringa region by now. So the 5 C's have entered our logo. You see 5 C's entangled. And these are the national colors of Tanzania. That's why we have green for the forest, yellow for the sun, blue for the water bodies, and black for the people. If you put these 5 C's together to a circle, you get this matrix of our activity clusters, the Fahari Yetu matrix. This is kind of a systems approach again, as our project is trying to develop a holistic framework for heritage management and development in the target region. Remember, credibility was blue, and here we have it in form of heritage research, mapping, and landscaping. Conservation was yellow. You see it here as Iringa Cultural Heritage Center. Capacity building was black and carries almost the same title here. Communication was black as well, and you see it as commercialization and promotion. Community involvement was green, and here it goes by, or for us, it goes by the name of outreach and empowerment. There are already some examples on the slide, but I would like to briefly present some of them in relation to the presented conceptual framework. Starting with the credibility cluster, heritage research, mapping, and landscaping. Here our expected result is to identify, map, and interpret heritage assets in the area through research. One activity therein is called, following this result is called Cluster Heritage Identification and Interpretation Projects. One of these research projects where groups of our students and colleagues are working is Iringa Urban History. that would be to define a timeline, a cultural timeline with different influences. Indigenous culture, colonial culture, liberation struggle, post-colonial, and the globalizing era we are in today. So that somehow corresponds with what I called a linear continuity, a historical approach to the heritage management, that we smooth transition from one generation to the next. Another project is called Iringa Culture and Livelihoods, and here we see a more systemic approach where we are linking culture to the economy and the environment through what we learn from the communities, because both of these projects base on the participation of the communities in interpreting their history and their livelihood strategies. Some pictures here from focus group discussions we conducted in villages in rural areas. Second cluster, the Iringa Cultural Heritage Center, what we then labeled with conservation. Here the result is that cultural heritage assets are preserved, documented, and made accessible through public display. And here I took the activity of rehabilitation and restoration of physical structures. Two of these activities under this one. The first one, Iringa Boma restoration. The Iringa Boma was the administrative or military headquarters of the Germans during the German colonial period, and later on as well used by the British. So we are currently restoring that building. I will show you pictures. What is interesting maybe concerning this, that there seemed to be a lot of foreign interest to preserve that one. The expats around, tourists, the donor, the European Union is our project donor, planners in this town, in this city, expressed strong interest in rescuing that building. While local communities didn't appear that much keen into such a restoring a building which is like kind of restoring the colonial culture or the colonial ruling of that area. When we asked the local communities, the second one, Kitanzini Monument, seemed to be of much more importance. That is a site where insurgents against the colonial regime as well as ordinary criminals were hanged. They were convicted at a police station, and then after a procession up a mountain or a slope, they were hanged on the gallows at Kitanzini. So here the locals, the African local communities really insisted on that this is an important place to preserve, to remember the colonial oppression going on there. So I think this is about harmonizing the different interests in creating a history, in preserving the history, representing the different perspectives. Here, this is the Boma building before restoration. Then we have the plans we drew for the restoration. And now you see a picture how it looks now. This is actually going on now from last week. The roof is off and things are renovated. Here another one inside. This is the other side. This is the monument which was placed at the Kitanzini side. I'm sorry for the bad picture. You just see that this is a residence area, which was 100 years ago, that was the place where the gallows was standing. So nowadays we have put a monument here symbolizing a tree from which the gallows or the thing where they were hanged with is hanging. residence area. In the background, you see a mosque. Another picture when we were with a group of exchange students visiting the site. Maybe interesting to mention concerning this as well is we gave this activity to the local municipality to supervise, to implement. And now again, we have somehow from a European perspective, you might have the aesthetics of that monument. Now you would think maybe, this is not really giving the thing the respect it deserves. The colors, colorful, a bit of a cartoon style kind of. But for the local people, it's different. They were tendering it to local artists, and then that was what was selected. So, yeah, somehow a way to deal with it between different cultural perceptions. Third one, commercialization and promotion. Here, the expected result is that local cultural heritage is sustainably commercialized and marketed. This is again a more systemic approach, linking heritage with the society, raising awareness in society, and with the economy, a market creation for culture and heritage, external empowerment. Here I just have some pictures from culture and tourism events we were conducting. Mkwawa Festival 2014, that was last year. Mkwawa was the chief, the most famous chief of the dominant, let's say, ethnic group in the area. So we have some pictures here at that event. He was like symbolically inaugurated as a chief. Then here you have a picture where you also see me when I got the honor to become an assistant chief on that inauguration. And here are some stalls we had aside where we were presenting what we were doing. This is a very proud picture for my Tanzanian colleagues because it's the president who came and were given instructions by my assistant manager, the one you see explaining. Just briefly to wind up, cluster 4 and 5, the professional capacity building. Again, I saw it like a systemic approach, capacity building. That means we want to convert heritage into a formal education, or we want to use formal education, linking heritage with the modern knowledge society somehow, or the modern way of knowledge production. Here we have developed some study programs we are offering. We are offering scholarships for students, and we also do international academic exchange, hopefully as well, possibly with the BTU-Cottbus. And lastly, community outreach and empowerment. I think that was already cross-cutting through the other ones presented. But important here is this is the principle I mentioned of equal access and participation, that we establishing satellite conservation centers in the rural areas that also remote groups can participate in the process, that we are trying to help them to market products and offer community training programs. And this is, especially the satellite centers, is the risk is there of not meeting expectations of the local communities. But we are figuring it out. Yeah, so thank you very much for listening. For those who are interested, I would be glad to hand you some brochures of what we are doing. Thank you very much.